Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello, everybody on Zoom. And hello. We have gotten the official word that we can start. I am just, as you can tell, just super excited for today and today's session. I appreciate everybody coming out on Zoom, in person, on Vimeo. And I just want to give a really warm welcome to this College of Environmental Design lecture. It is sponsored by the Arcus Social Justice Core Fellowship and the Department of City and Regional Planning. And the title of the talk today is Mural Art, History, Policy, and Procedure. And so our fantastic guest speaker today, and we're so honored that he's here, is Andre Jones. And who is Andre? He is an illustrator, designer, muralist, and true trailblazer and visionary leader. Using his spiritual gift of the visual arts, Andre redefines urban communities with his emotionally captivating works. These works can be found on apparel, canvases, and buildings worldwide. He has found an empathetic, loving connection to all members of the African diaspora. His work is influenced by traditional African textiles, Coptic illustrations, and modern illustrators. He recently traveled to Africa and painted murals in Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Zanzibar. His passion for the arts drives him to produce visually stimulating imagery and build long-standing traditions with people throughout the world. Andre lives in the Bay Area, California, and is prevalent in the arts community. His work is exhibited in galleries in Vallejo, Oakland, and San Francisco. He is the founder and executive director of the Bay Area Mural program, which is phenomenal, just like he is. BAMP, the acronym is BAMP, is a nonprofit organization that does murals throughout the Bay Area. It also teaches art classes specifically to Bay Area low-income communities, and leads amazing educational and powerful walking tours in Oakland, among many other things that we'll be talking about today. His fantastic staff is here in the audience. And I also want to thank Jeff Allen and Elizabeth Bowler and Renee Chow and Dajin Faulkner for all their assistance with this session today. And also, they are featured in this phenomenal book called Painting the Streets, Oakland Uprising in the Time of Rebellion. So if we could give a warm welcome to Andre.
Thank you. All right. And let's give a round of applause to Karen for putting this all together. Yes. And let's keep it going for yourselves for even showing up. All right, and as Karen said, my name is Andre Jones. I am the executive director of the Bay Area Mural program. And Karen pretty much gave you a whole synopsis of my life, so I don't really need to say any more about myself. Let's get into today's lecture, the mural arts, history, policy, and procedure. So basically, I've broken this large topic of mural arts into 3 sections that we're going to be basically talking about in like 8 forms. The last, we're going to end all the questions we can save to the end, and then we can chat and discuss and really get into the depths of this. But really, very simply, vocab, prehistory, antiquity, Bay Area, policy, procedure, and then our wonderful organization, the BAMP. Karen has pretty much said. Let's see what Karen left out. I graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University 2002 with a degree in commercial arts. 20 years of painting history and facilitating murals, 8 years in the Philadelphia Mural Arts program, studied Coptic and Islamic art in East Africa, founded the Bay Area Mural program, worked on over 100 murals worldwide, 50 of them at least here in the Bay, and guided thousands of people through mural tours of downtown Oakland. So, vocabulary. You don't have to write any of these down. If you want to, you can. But just some fun words that I found interesting in my research, even in the 20 years of doing painting. Illustration. We all know what illustration is, right? But really the depths of it. An illustration is just the depiction using paint or a pencil or any type of writing apparatus to depict some type of symbolism between, or really just depicting symbolism. What I found interesting is how it correlates with the origin or the prefix illusion. So when we're casting or painting illustrations, we're casting illusions, right? So really when we're doing murals on the wall, that's not really an image of Nipsey Hussle. It's an image, but it's not really him. It's really just paint on the wall, right? So it's an illusion. Shout out to Timothy B. He's a phenomenal artist. We sponsored this mural here in 2019. Bipedal or bipedal. How many people know what this word? How many history majors in here? No? Everybody in city planning? All right. I found this very interesting. Bipedal or bipedal basically means that you're upright, walking on two legs, leaving your hands free, right? Bipedal, we get it. All right, graffiti. All right, illegal promotion of art, no permission, just done on the wall. Nowadays, people get commissioned for graffiti, but initially graffiti was done illegally. Frescoes, these were like some of the very first forms of murals. Even before the Italian Renaissance, frescoes were basically when you mixed limestone and the paint right there and like a plaster together and applied it directly into the wall. Not even on the wall, but basically just kind of painted into the wall so it was permanent. That's why frescoes are still around today. And then murals. While we're here to discuss murals. From the Latin word muris, meaning wall, a graphic artwork that is painted or applied directly to a wall, ceiling, or permanent substrate. All right, so that's what we are in the business of doing. We create murals. Why do we create murals? Because it is the first art, it's the very first form of even just interpreting. Before canvas and paint brushes, we did murals. So let's go all the way back, prehistory, 45,000 years ago. All right, in the beginning, it's debated about when the beginning of civilization started. A lot of people say, 300,000 years, 50,000 years. I found research, 2017, they discovered the woman Lucy in Ethiopia that dates back to 3 million years ago, right? And she was bipedal or bipedal. She was standing on 2 feet, meaning she left her hands free so that she could hunt, eat, gather, and even probably do artwork, all right? So this was the first modern human being to travel, or not Lucy, but 70,000 to 100 years ago, the first modern humans traveled outside of Africa and carried their art with them. All right, so who painted the first mural? The Paleolithic era, 32,000 years ago. They said, if you Google it, they're in Chavez Cave in France. This was the very first mural that they found. I have issues with that. Because I've never seen a rhino in France. So I'm wondering if this artist had traveled, or for those that believe in Pangea, maybe at one time all the earth was connected and rhinos just ran the whole entire earth. But, discrepancies with history and dating. But who painted the most murals? I found that there in Egypt, the very first murals were done in a fresco style on tombs, and this was dated 15,000 years prior to the Chavez Cave paintings. Then there's also paintings in Indonesia that also date earlier than the cave paintings in France. The oldest figure drawing, or figurative mural painting, this was also discovered 2017, Indonesia island of Sulawesi, and just shedding new light on art and the humanities. Fun fact, the very first paints were made out of crushed pigments and water paste. Charcoal was used for black, hematite for red, limonite for yellow, diametric earth for white, and serpentine for blue and green. I thought that was interesting. Aboriginal murals found in Australia 20,000 years ago. They made their brushes from human hair, reed feathers, and chewed sticks. What I found interesting about these murals is this was examples of some of the very first spray paint, because they would take bones, hollow them out, and take that same pigment and just blow it up on the wall around their hand. So they'd use their hand or a piece of stick or something as a stencil, and they would just blow the paint around it. So very first form of spray paint. Found it very interesting. Then bringing it here to the Americas, because a lot of Western history focuses really just on Europe. So even in America, you have indigenous paintings that date back to, I don't even think they had a date for this one. There's very little known about these murals here in Baja, California, but even though they're overlooked because of some of the European cave paintings, these murals are perceived to be a lot older than a lot of the European cave paintings. So pretty much in summary of prehistory murals, every culture that you find on the face of the earth, especially going back to Lucy and her being upright and walking 3 million years ago, we have to assume, or I would like to assume, that wherever humans were, there was art being created. There was no known schools until Italy, until the 16th century. But prior to the 16th century, we have to assume and also know that some of the greatest art was being created during these civilizations. Oh, also another fun fact, before antiquity, there was a lot more brown and black representation in the artwork. And not just representation, but unity, depictions of royalty, there in Ethiopia and in Egypt, and even there in Greece as well, too. So, moving into the art of antiquity, I love to, just research the etymology of words. So even in looking up AD, a lot of people think it means after death. Nowadays, they've changed it to CE, common era, because they don't want to just refer to the Christian religion, and there's a lot more going on in the world other than Christianity, and in my presentation as well, too. AD stands for Anno Dominion, in the year of our Lord. I found this very interesting as well, too, because even outside of just Christian artwork, even in Islamic artwork and Indian artwork, there was still a transition. Hold on one second. But it was a transition of imagery from, depicting social interaction and everyday occurrences, praising, the daily activity, showing depictions of hunting. A lot of it transformed to depicting the image of what humanity knew as God. So however, in whatever country they were in, you found images of, everyday activity, but also these great depictions of godlike images. Even in Islamic art, where a lot of people believe that Islamic art, doesn't have depictions or illustrations of people or animals. In the first century, Islamic art did. So you have great masters throughout China, throughout India. The bottom left corner is also cave paintings found in India in the 6th century. And then also during that period, it was very interesting because with Constantinople converting to Christianity, now a lot of the images and murals from the church's perspective now take over the art world. So a lot of the work becomes very Christian influenced.
Did I just knock you out of your seat?
All right.
Sorry about that.
So, Ethiopia, during that period, I found was very interesting because they were part of the forerunners of Christian murals. So a lot of people don't even realize, because there was so much going on in Italy, so much going on in the rest of the world and modern-day Turkey, that Ethiopia, 4th century, had started carving these large churches out of single rock pillars there in Lalibela and started painting the inside of them with these depictions of the wise men and Mary and birth of Christ. So me and my good brother Keith, we got a chance to travel to Ethiopia and see some of these paintings and some of these churches. And even though there wasn't a lot of detail put into the anatomy per se during this period of time, there was so much energy and detail just put into the story and into the decorations going all around the church. None of these churches, or what I say, all of these churches basically, when painted, were painted from top to bottom. Ceiling, everything was painted inside. No section of these walls were left unpainted. And then fast forwarding into what was known as the Italian Renaissance there in Florence, Italy. This is when we get into the 13th century and a lot more detail is put into murals. The Italians, or even the influence from the Greeks, basically took frescoes and really mastered the technique of fresco painting. Not only did they master the technique of fresco painting, they also mastered anatomy. So as we look at some of the older depictions, you see the form, very playful, very fun, but it wasn't until the 13th century that you really see, work like Michelangelo that really started to inspire the world. So during that time period, 1350 to 1550 is when the Italian Renaissance came about. What was important about the Renaissance, basically, it was the birth of urban society, emphasized individual ability, and what I found super interesting was Niccolo Machiavelli's book, The Prince, basically took the morality out of politics. So now people were a lot more cutthroat. People were not just trying to be, pretty and perfect. People were really starting to get devious. And this also was depicted in the artwork. All right, so now, fast forwarding to contemporary time. I know it's so much information that I had to really figure out what we could talk about within a year that you guys would also find interesting. So now we're going to fast forward to modern day times. 1930, Bay Area vanguards. Well, before 1930, I also had to throw this in there as well too. 18th century, the oldest mural found in San Francisco and the oldest building, oldest structure still to date in San Francisco still was the Mission Dolores Church. I found it very interesting that translated into English, it means mission of pains, not just one, multiple pains. So, what does that really mean? Not sure. They made it sound as if this was a collaboration between the explorers, colonizers, and the Ohlone tribe, and they give credit to it being an Ohlone mural, but it was in a church, hidden behind a pew, that it looked like even in contemporary times they didn't want people to really know about or see, but they didn't want to erase it. They brought light to it in 2011. Bunny Reyes and Jet Martinez did a reinterpretation of it out in the public so that people could really just see more of this painting and draw awareness to it. 1933, we have FDR's New Deal. This is when artwork really starts to excel here in the Americas. Inspired from Mexico, a lot of the Mexican artists like Diego Rivera start to come up to America and influence what's going on and really depicting the American story. So you have this piece that was done at the Coit Tower by Victor Arnautoff, The Life of George Washington, done in 1934. Coit Tower hosted a lot of murals, had, like I said, Diego Rivera and a whole bunch of other muralists that came and painted. This was one of my favorite, Diego Rivera's Pan-American Unity, done in 1940 by Diego Rivera, where he also depicts his wife, Frida Kahlo, in the mural. And then also it looks like the little Oakland symbol. I don't know if he was trying to be or was aware, conscious of it, but I thought it was pretty cool that he threw that in there. Also during that time, the SF Mothers Building was painted by Helen Forbes and Dorothy Puccinelli. This was also giving light to the fact that FDR's New Deal wanted to empower and employ women to do the everyday activities just like men, as well as doing some of the contracted work of painting murals. All right, fast forward to 1949. Spray paint is invented. Oh my goodness, they did not know what they created in 1949. No, they did not. All right, so Mr. Seymour in 1949, inspired by his wife because, of course, aerosol for hair and holding, gels were already invented and created. She said, if you want to paint the side of a building faster, why not just put the paint in an aerosol can? He thought it was a dumb idea till they actually made it, and boom, spray paint was made to paint the side of houses. During that same time, there was a lot of civil unrest, 1960s, moving forward. You have protests and you have the civil rights movement. So you mix civil rights movement with spray paint, you get graffiti. All right, so Daryl McCrae, AKA Cornbread, was known as the first graffiti writer from Philadelphia. So I got to spend time in Philadelphia and really get to absorb some of that, Philadelphia graffiti energy. So graffiti, a lot of people are on the fence about graffiti. Some people love it, some people hate it. We talk about it on our mural tours. Graffiti is definitely a part of the culture of American society that, you can't run away from. If you have, it's almost, goes hand in hand with, I would say, protesting and civil rights, all right? So let's talk about some of the first vanguards. We have Mike Dream, legendary graffiti writer. You had a lot of graffiti going on in the 70s and 80s, and hate to say it, but a lot of it was gang related. This is where graffiti got its start. So people like Cornbread and Mike Dream didn't really want to be a part of a gang. They really wanted to get into it because of the art. So they didn't really decide to join crews. They decided to, illustrate in all of the crew styles and really just be more of like that bridge between gang groups. You had KQED, the early years, that depicts and shows a lot of the graffiti writers that used to hang out at 23rd Yard, which was the first social meetup in 1980. You have Emory Douglas, who was the illustrator and artist for the Black Panther, who didn't necessarily do murals himself, but he did a lot of public art because galleries didn't let him show his artwork. So the Panthers allowed him to show his artwork and would post up his posters all throughout the city and around the world, and then inspired murals like this one here today, and also ones done by KMBA and RF Reefa 1 in West Oakland. So there in the 90s, Mayor Frank Jordan really started to crack down on graffiti. So all those social hangouts that people got to really just paint, all those were shut down. So now what happens to graffiti artists, they hit back to the streets, start spraying up your mom and dad pop shops and all of the corner stores. And now there's really no place for them to go except just painting up the town. So what happens now? This is the interesting part. This is where we're going to be moving into public policy. So we're at a standstill. The city, the community doesn't want these graffiti artists spraying up the whole town and putting their name everywhere. But we have an issue because we have a whole lot of artists that have a whole lot of time and a whole lot of paint. What do we do with this combination? City's got to make a decision because these guys stay up at 4 or 5 a.m. when the police aren't even working and spray paint when nobody's looking. So you need to give them creative outlets. So a lot of nonprofit organizations, a lot of art groups started to form in the 90s and the early 2000s, like Presida Eyes, who painted the Women's Building in San Francisco. You have Trust Your Struggle, Few and Far, AB Art Gallery, Aerosol, Presida Eyes. All of these are organizations throughout the Bay that help to facilitate public art. So really these were like, organizations that help to give graffiti artists, street artists a platform to really just paint, but paint for a cause. That leads us to policy and procedure. All right, we've really kind of broken this down into two different sections. So let's talk about public policy. What is public policy? An institutionalized proposal or a deciding set of elements like laws, regulation, guidelines, and actions to solve or address relevant and real-world problems guided by concepts and often implemented by programs. Rules, guidelines, laws. Artists don't like rules, guidelines, and laws. We're still at a standstill. We got to figure this out, right? So, every city has its own public policy set up by local government. Our organization, we have to follow certain rules and guidelines. So it's finding that middle ground. Basically, the city says what you can and can't do. Artists push that envelope all the time, trying to figure out what you can do without having to, cut all the red tape. And we get to public policy. So every city has its own public policy. This is the city of Oakland and its city ordinance. Basically, 1.5% of all municipal capital. Basically, every big building, every new building that goes up downtown Oakland, 1.5% of that has to go to public art. So if it's a $3 million building, 1.5% of $3 million, where are my math majors? No? Okay, I have no idea either. But I have a very smart group of people that work with me, and they help me to figure out what that breakdown is, and this is what we actually go after. And since we're here in the city of Berkeley, if there is any artists in the building or anybody who wants to know, you can go to this website right here, berkeleyca.gov, or even if you're not an artist just trying to figure out how to facilitate a mural, they have rules and regulations on how you can do that here at this website. My personal experience with guidelines and public policy. Oh, I have too many stories to tell. Matter of fact, let me back it up 1, 2. So, this image right here, how many people remember when Black Lives Matter was painted in the streets downtown Oakland, San Francisco? All right, great. Our team facilitated that. That was us, all right, along with 200 community members. But interesting story about this one. We were there the night before getting ready for all the community members to come out. We had brought about 40 gallons of paint, yellow paint, strictly. We had set it out. We were lining out Black Lives Matter on the street. We were looking to, basically have all the letters nice before the day before so people could come in and fill it out and not take too much time. While we were mapping out, I think, the L of lives, pretty much we had set our paints right here. And we were just taking chalk and we were outlining everything, right? Paint set up right here. We were right here at Lives. We see an unmarked van pull up to the corner. Policemen jump out of the van, grab all of our paint, put it in the van, and take off. Never in my life would I ever imagine that I would be in a car chasing the police. Who would even think, right? But me and my buddy Sorrell from Anthem B Gallery, shout out to Sorrell, we jump in the car and we're right behind the police. They run a red light, we run a red light. They make an illegal right turn, we make an illegal right turn. They make it down to 4th Street Precinct, drive into the garage, we stop. We don't drive in the garage because we don't want to be staying in the police precinct all night. So we wait outside, sergeant comes out and he's like, hey, we're holding your paints. We're like, yeah, but we have permission to do that. Sorrell is very well known downtown Oakland. Says, I know Mayor London, Mayor Libby. And sergeant looks at us like, yeah, whatever, gets on the phone. And if you see the sergeant's face, he's just like, yeah, these guys are trying to paint downtown. Yeah? Yeah? Really? Really? Okay. Guys, give them their paint back. So they got to take all the paint out of the precinct, put it back in our car, and then the next day we get out there just in time to paint this, Black Lives Matter. But once again, during the Black Lives Matter civil unrest, a lot of public policy started to change because this is when our organization also started to get a lot more calls for work because people saw the importance of public art and also just, not just the importance of public art, but how public art was also, a way of just calming and easing a lot of people's issues. For us, it was therapeutic, just even being able to paint during a time when a lot of things were so, up in the air. So moving back to personal experience, that was one. Another one was painting this Steph Curry mural on the side of the Oakland YMCA. Pretty much we had to cut through a lot of red tape. Number one, Rakuten, they had hired us to paint this mural. And number two, they didn't tell us that Nike, the Warriors, Steph Curry's group ELP, and all these other people would be coming to the meetings and giving us their input. So ultimately, before we did this mural, we came up with, I think, about 70 renditions. Yeah, 70 renditions of just Steph Curry, just Steph Curry. So ultimately, because we are a nonprofit organization that also focuses on community engagement, we didn't want to just highlight Steph Curry and his wonderful achievements on the court. We also wanted to show his wonderful achievements off the court. So we found this image of Steph Curry on his website, reading to children, and we decided to put this into the mural. But along with that, the top 2 floors of this 115-foot building, 9 stories high, it's a parking deck. Top 2 floors are owned by the FBI. So we also had to get FBI. This is all part of public policy and clearance. So we had no idea when we chose this building, because there was about 4 or 5 buildings that we were looking at putting this piece up on. And when we chose this one, it was perfect. YMCA, basketball, Steph Curry, it just made sense. Didn't realize top 2 floors were owned by the FBI, so now we got to get FBI clearance just to paint this mural and to go up to the top floor and drop down and actually, finish this mural. So that was another part of red tape to where we had to just wait like 2 or 3 weeks to get it done. And what else? Trees, yes. Then the city charged us close to $4,000 to cut these trees right here in order for the mural to be seen. At first they weren't going to charge us, but then they realized, like, you know what, they can make money off of this, so they came up with a new policy. Producing a mural. So now, let's talk about the process of creating a mural. There are a lot of steps in creating a mural. It's funny because a lot of people just tell me, like, I just walked by one day and it just appeared. And I'm like, beautiful, that's what we wanted you to think. But we had to go through all these steps in order for that to happen. So planning, where is the mural going to exist? What's it going to look like? Do we have a budget for it? Choosing a theme. All of these are broken down simply into, and I'm going to go through these quick, and you can ask questions at the end. But planning, where's the wall? Who owns the wall? What is the budget for the supplies? What is the funding for the mural? What is the schedule and due date? Who is going to paint the mural? So these are all questions that you have to ask yourself when planning out the mural, all right? And then creating a budget. How much are supplies? How much are paints? How much are you going to pay your artist? These are all questions you got to think about if you're not the artist, and even if you are the artist. Choosing a theme. What is the purpose of your mural? Is there a cause being addressed? Who is the audience? Where will the mural live? So all these things you want to be thinking about, as you're creating and producing your mural. How are you going to promote it? How are you going to get people involved? Is this mural just going to exist and then people just got to figure it out? Or are you going to take a little bit of time before you create the mural to, get other students involved, get administration involved, get the city involved? If it's going out in the world, you probably got to go through a lot of ordinance here in Berkeley, so you're going to get people involved. So you might as well, start talking to people. Selecting an artist. If you're not the artist, you got to take a few things into consideration. Of course, the theme dictates the artist and the style, but do they have a good reputation and a good attitude? There are a lot of amazing artists in this world, but if they don't have a great attitude, a lot of times it's going to be hard to work with them. All right? Efficient and clean. That's the other part. I'm working on my cleanliness. My team will tell you. I clean up after myself most of the time. But you want to check these things out before hiring an artist. And you really want to love their work. Depending on where you're putting the artwork out in the world, you want that community to love the work as well, too. Will help bring attention to your project, form committee to help. So these are all things that we like to do, but it also helps, you don't want to be the only person making the decisions. So, getting some of your friends to, talk about it always helps out. Community collaboration. All right? Like I said, if it's going out in the world, you want to take in consideration the people that are going to be looking at this mural every day. Even if you're the artist or the facilitator, the person planning this mural, you don't have to wake up and look at it every day. The school across the street does, the corner store guy does. These are all people that you don't have to, but you might just want to have conversations about what should go on the wall that they might love looking at every day. Contracts and copyrights, the good, fun stuff, right? So, yes, contracts are very critical. Shame on me. I just did a mural the other day without a contract. You see her face, she was like, oh my God, how dare you. But I do not recommend it to anybody. Unless they're your good friend. But even then, it's just nice to have some type of agreement. You don't want them getting mad at you because you're taking too long. You don't want to get mad at them because they didn't give you what they promised they would. So, consulting legal advice, especially if it's public artwork. Studying the Copyright Act of 1976, everything is pretty laid out as far as what it is that you can't do. I've read it, things that I really pulled out of it and kind of applied to, what we do in doing murals. A lot of people ask, who owns the copyright to a mural that has been painted directly on a building wall? And the answer to that is the artist usually owns the copyright. More times, if there's no written agreement, the artist does. A lot of times, if there's a written agreement, the artist can be talked out of that copyright, so you got to make sure that you stick to holding on to your copyright. And is that, yeah, I think that was the number one question. So procedure, this is broken down into two different protocols. You got safety protocol and artist protocol. So safety protocol, you got to check and see if where you're painting needs any permits. You know, if you got to block off the sidewalk, if you're using big equipment that might drop stuff down, you got to figure out if that's necessary. Checking equipment, proper attire. So if you need work vests for volunteers, or even letting your volunteers or people that are painting know, do not come in your brand new Jordans. You know, they will get paint on them. So it's best if you go ahead and wear paint clothes. And then cones if you need them. Artist protocol, checking supplies, good attitude, and making participants aware of the safety protocols above. If you're the only artist, you know, it's really just checking your supplies and making sure that you stick to what it is that you agreed to doing. So if you've got a design that the city has approved, it doesn't make sense going and painting something totally different, they will take it down. Conservation and restoration. Prevention is always better than cure. So we make sure that we put a UV coat of graffiti sealant on top of our murals after we're done. It definitely helps with the weathering, but you know, with the acrylic paint that we use, the average mural lasts about 10 to 30 years, depending on, you know, if it's facing the sun and all these other different, you know, variables. And if maintenance is needed, it's always best to put, you know, clear coat on it, because you see all the scaffolding that we have to set up. You don't want to have to go back and set that scaffolding up a year or two later. This brings me to the favorite part of this lecture, the Bay Area Mural Program, our organization and what we do. Pretty much all the history, all the policy, all the procedure and process, we wrap it into the Bay Area Mural Program and the nonprofit organization that our team takes pride in. So this is our group, this is our team. Our mission is to turn bare and blighted walls into artistic landmarks. We're on our way to doing that. Our admin team, most of them are here in the front row. You can shake hands and get their autographs after the lecture. This is our admin team of 8, so we're a small nonprofit. You know, we have about 22 contracted artists that we also work with, and then probably another 50 or so artists that we keep in touch with and just highlight at different occasions. Small little timeline of our lifespan. We've been around for 5 years. 2017, we got started. It was just a concept while we were painting a mural in Vallejo. It was 120 feet by 40 feet. It's still probably one of my largest personal paintings. So yeah, it's right by the Vallejo Farmers Market, if anybody's ever at the Vallejo Farmers Market. One of my favorite farmers markets in the area. But yeah, 120 feet, 40 feet up in the air. I'm swinging on this boom lift and I'm like, I need a team. 120 feet is a lot of space, and they wanted cars. Basically, it's the whole depiction of Vallejo with the Carquinez Bridge, and yeah, so it was a lot of work. Me and my good friend Artistic were up there joking. 2018, got a loan from a buddy with $5,000, set up the nonprofit organization, and we were off to the races. 2019, we started getting calls from the Oakland A's. We did a mural there. Took a trip to Standing Rock during the Standing Rock protest. Did a mural on the reservation in Standing Rock. 2020, moved into our headquarters where we still are today at the California Hotel, bottom floor. Come by and check us out. COVID-19 and riots hit, and our mission statement aligned with social unrest. So, like I said, Black Lives Matter. 2020 is when we really got a lot of media attention because we were already doing the social justice work and the community engagement work. So a lot of people started paying attention. 2021, Steph Curry, 3-point mural, Rakuten Warriors, highlighting Marcus's bookstore. And then 2022, we were featured in the Paint the Streets book that Karen showed you at the beginning, just highlighting a lot of the work that we did. So as an organization, Karen mentioned it, we do a lot. We facilitate spray paint classes, figure drawing classes. We've been published in books. We lead mural tours downtown Oakland. We have our annual gala in March every year at the California Ballroom. We do murals, and like I said, we also highlight other non-BAMP artists in a lot of our social media and promotion. What we like to focus on most importantly at the Bay Area Mural Program is what we call the Big Picture Program. So, no pun intended, but the big picture, murals, the idea of people coming together to, participate in mankind's first art form. This is the Big Picture Program. So pretty much we have a list of schools, seniors buildings, personal projects that we put together through the year, and we just check them off as we go, bringing awareness on our social media and inviting people to participate as well too. A few examples, we did Westlake Middle School, what was that? That was this year, beginning of this year. Wow, it seems like so long ago. While the teachers were protesting, go figure. And pretty much we did this mural with no budget, just in support. And then we also did the Asian Solidarity mural, which we had lined up. We were working on this for like 2 years. Ashley Cousin, who is in the second row, was the lead artist on this project right here, along with Sorrel from Anthony Gallery. This is my buddy who we were chasing the police down with, right here. That's him, that's him. So, and then just an example of, no budget to larger budgets. We do everything in between. With our funding for our Big Picture Program, in 2022, we were able to do 10 workshops, 5 public exhibitions, had over 1,000 participants, 12 classes, and 17 murals throughout the year. And then these are a few of the murals that we worked on, I guess, over the course of the 5 years. This one was done, I think, 2019 with lead artist Rachel Wolf, who is also our creative director. Another Asian Solidarity piece. How many people have ever done gymnastics at head over heels? Ooh, your daughter goes there? All right, they have fun up in there. Yes, so we got a chance to do the head over heels athletic arts in Emeryville, which was great because we got to meet with like over 100 gymnasts. Super inspiring. We're watching them just flip throughout the building and just do all their, gymnastic stunts, and really just get a sense of what they wanted to see every day on their wall. Like I said, we don't have to look at it every day. They have to look at it. So we want to make sure that they fall in love with it, that they find ownership in it. Same with the GRIP building, Greater Richmond Interfaith Program in Richmond. It's a houseless shelter. We met with the people that actually live there. They got to help participate and paint the mural along with us. And they were very insistent on not being called homeless, but they wanted to be more regarded as houseless. Some of them actually checked into the center, but lived in, trailers, lived in their cars. So they felt like they had a home, but they did not want to be considered, they felt like they had a house, but they didn't have a house, but they felt like they had a home. Yes. So we wanted to make sure that we really highlighted that in this mural and make sure that they, took ownership in this, as well as just give the community something nice to look at, because it's a very sensitive subject. So that's another thing, and it's addressed in public policy. People want to know the design before you actually put it up there, because is it going to offend people? Is it going to be embraced? Even if you're talking about hard and tough subjects, is this going to be something that people don't want to actually look at all day? So this one, the community loved it, and you can check it out in Richmond. It's still there today. This one is in West Oakland, the Black Liberation Walking Tour, highlighting a lot of just the history of West Oakland. The Panthers included. We did a couple workshops with the community of West Oakland and just asked them what they wanted to see in this mural. And they came up with over 100 different ideas, and it was our job to take these 100 ideas and really formulate it into one mural, and this is it here. Our Daly City mural, we did this with about 40 students from Jefferson High School at Daly City. Majority of our team was working on this project, scaffolding up to the top, and really giving the students the lead on not only just the designing, but as well as the painting. You can check out the stories on our social media. So, I don't know what time it is, but I tried to zoom through that. I saw a few people nodding, a few people, everybody awake? Everybody still awake? Okay, all right, cool. So, we're wrapping it up here. Why is public art important? Pretty much, in a nutshell, for these 6 main reasons. Whether it was the murals in antiquity, prehistory, there's an overlapping theme with murals being the very first art form, right? So before canvas, before paintbrushes, you had murals, finger painting. And nevertheless, it was a form of beautification, storytelling, memorializing, community activity, artistic protests, and increasing property value. Thank you for supporting the Bay Area Mural Program. You guys can check us out on Instagram and visit our website. Thank you guys for listening to the lecture. Oh, Q&A. Almost walked off without the Q&A. You guys don't have any questions. You guys are ready to go, right?
Let's take questions here, and then Jeff, will people on Zoom be able to hear the audience ask questions, or do we need to?
No.
No, okay.
So you'll have to kind of repeat whatever somebody asks.
Repeat the questions after they ask them.
And then maybe we can check the chat too. Jeff, could you open up?
Yeah, I've got it open back here.
Okay, great.
All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
At my last job, I was able to commission a few murals, mostly on private property.
Nice.
And I found that often, like, the clients that we were working for who own the property were a bit maybe too involved in, like, the vision of what the content is, and some tend to get watered down to the point of it being, the artist gets frustrated because they're like, well, you hired us, like, why can't we just do what we want? And I think the variety, like, even if I don't like a mural, I think it's important that we have variety in street art. So can you speak to that? How do you manage people's tastes and all the voices in the room? Because art is subjective.
Very.
And like, design and art by commission is rarely very good. So like, how do you?
Don't say that.
Well, like, how do you? Yeah, and like the Steph Curry mural you did. Like, how do you navigate all the voices and try and kind of build steam behind a concept that's not everybody's gonna love?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's part of what makes good art good, is that not everybody loves it.
Yeah, good question. How do you navigate all the voices and really try not to water down the artist's vision, but still give the client and the community what it is that they're paying for? Is, I guess, in a nutshell. Woo! So this is the juggling act, and this is why we got a team, because there's times where so before I put on my administrative cap, I've had my artist cap on for 2 decades. So I'm an artist first before I'm an administrator. So I understand both sides, but even there's times where I get frustrated. I'm like, if this client asks for one more change, I'm gonna just flip over the table. But it's a part of, I don't want to make artists feel like they're alone. I feel like even in public policy and all these other, there's times where people feel like flipping the table because the vision gets, so watered down or put into so many different people's hands that now it's transformed for good, for bad. Hopefully, and what we do in the mural world is really try and hear out our clients and what it is that they want. We do consultations with them, really just like listen, ask them to put together mood boards. And then, like I said, we have probably about 22 artists that we work with, all with different styles. Even as an organization, we really push for people to, promote and highlight their individuality, because art is subjective. So we don't want our whole organization all painting the same way or everybody painting like me. That's not going to benefit the community. So being able to give the client options, so even when we send back designs, we like to give people something very photorealistic, something very animation looking, something very in between, something very foliage driven, so that we're not getting our feelings hurt when the one design that we submitted and put 100 hours into gets shot down. So it's a balancing act, but I totally hear you. A lot of times when it does get into that public policy, city ordinance, it's got to be approved by the city. A lot of the message can be, I will say, tamed, but then we also got to remember the general public is the general public. when we're doing private pieces for ourselves, they can be as racy and as charged as we want them to be. But when it's for the public, it's school children that are going to be walking by. It's grannies and grandpas. It's, college students. It's all different eyes that are going to be looking at it, not just, middle-class people that are, strong and tough and can take a, sarcastic, like it's got to be really for the community when it's out in the public. So, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Come on. Yeah.
Hi, so thank you so much for the amazing work that you've done in Oakland. My family's from West Oakland, and I really appreciate seeing your art around. So I kind of have two questions, and I'm sorry. But both of them sort of have to do with longevity of funding for different kinds of projects. The first is, I can see that you've been really involved in making art that is controversial before we've had this sort of racial awakening where people were open to receiving stories from a broader perspective of people, particularly from Black voices. The communities that I'm interested in are primarily in the South. And so I'm curious of how you're able to procure funding for art that is not going to be well received by everybody in the community, can tell important but controversial stories. And I'm especially wondering this as I feel like the moment where people were willing to fund Black art and really care about Black Lives Matter is fading. And so like there was this moment, and so since you've been doing this before this moment, like how do you see us moving past that moment? And then like if I could ask like my second question in one breath. So again, like I'm primarily interested in coastal communities that have tourist economies. And so I feel like these areas are very unique because people want public art for tourists, but then there's also a precarity to the art because of the increasing risk of natural disasters because of climate change. And so how do you see like climate change impacting the value that cities place on public art in coastal communities, because like the work that you've invested time and money in could potentially be destroyed?
Good question. All right, so let's see. We got climate change, and then before that, how do we address funding that, for Black and brown communities when not everybody's really excited about seeing the subject matter and stories of these. Girl, welcome to the story of my life. No, it's, once again, it's a balancing act. And I think that as an organization, we've done a very good job at really, navigating and being able to, tell the stories of, Black, Asian, Pacific Island communities, from that direct standpoint, and being able to, find the funding is always the hard part. Finding the struggling artists is the easy part. It's finding the funding to facilitate these projects, because once again, yes, even when you're trying to tell a story about a specific community, as soon as funding comes in, or it's like, well, why can't we include all the communities? And it's like, yes, can we get funding for that as well too? But then this community is underserved and underrepresented. Can we find funding for, and once again, I agree with you, 2020, civil unrest, George Floyd, pandemic, everybody was like, yes, let's support. Now those same organizations, same even companies that we were affiliated with, they're all cutting back their funding and programs, kind of like, okay, that's what it's like. No, we're still struggling minority artists. That hasn't changed. Even as Oakland and places, start to, come back alive and, in a booming way, which leads me to the next question of climate change. And if they're still putting together city ordinance for buildings, we're going to still paint. If that architecture is still going up and they're still making plans for 2040 and 2050, we're still going to paint. We've gotten better. At first, it was really tough for me because I'd be like, if we sign a contract, do we get started tomorrow? I want to paint today. What's taking so long? Now we've signed contracts to where, we don't even get started till 2024. I don't even know what 2024 look like. Are we going to be here? Are the buildings going to be here? I don't know, but You know, one thing I did realize, and my grandmother told me this, is that, you know, you gotta stay focused on your mission. You know, she was like, boy, they done told us that the end of the world was coming like 6, 7 different times, 2000, 2011. Like, so even with that, and it really dawned on me when I'm still watching, you know, these car companies putting out their designs for 2017. Dubai is still planning on putting up new buildings for 2040. I'm like, hold on, I need to be starting to plan. I can't just be living in the next. So things could happen, but you still got to just, you know, roll with the punches and keep on making plans. I hope I answered your question. Yes.
I also have really 2 lengthy questions. I'm so sorry.
Come on, let's go.
So my first question, so I know that, well, I don't know, but I feel like there's like a shift in some of your art that you've done. There's like Authentically Oakland on Whole Foods, which is like flowers and it's like very vibrant. And then you have like Black Liberation on Market Street and 7th West, or Closer, 6 Feet Apart. And like, when I'm looking at these pieces.
Girl, you done studied. Come on. Woo.
I'm like a really big fan, so this is crazy for me. Like, so
Ah.
yeah. I've also seen a trap art, so this is yeah.
Shout out to trap art. That's where I got my start. In the Bay Area.
So I feel like there's like this shift, and I think that obviously it's like all activism, but like part of it, like when I'm experiencing this art, like some of it's like convincing the community that like my life matters, and then another part is like me knowing that I deserve peace, I guess, and like the flowers and stuff. So I guess I just wanted to know, like, is there a shift in your art? Or am I just like imagining that? Or and then like, what are you trying to tell the community with such a different?
Yes. Great question, and yes, you do, man. I can tell you've been studying the artwork because you have felt that shift. So even with Whole Foods, 2017, Whole Foods was one of our first projects. I had just got the nonprofit status, and a part of me had been, so for those that don't know, my street artist name, people know me in the streets as Natty Rebel. So with that name alone, a lot of my work has been, you know, social justice driven. So even to answer your question, I've probably, you know, shot myself in the foot on a lot of projects, but in the long run, I probably didn't feel I was the person for that project. But ultimately, I think that the shift in my artwork happened with Whole Foods because it was like, all right, Natty Rebel's not getting any calls. I just did the big Vallejo project. Now, let me see if I can start getting bigger projects because even for myself, I didn't want to be put into the box of just being known as a black artist or a artist that just does social justice, you know. I'm very good at drawing flowers. I'm very good at drawing animals. And then also this is part of, you know, healing my trauma even as a black male. I don't need to have a fist in every painting that I do. You know, every painting that I do doesn't have to be a protest. You know. I love the color pink. I love flowers. I need to put that into my work. And it wasn't until I did an exhibition in Philadelphia at a Haitian gallery, and the lady came to look at my artwork at my studio, and she was like, I love your work, very colorful, but do you like women? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, all you paint is men, and in my gallery, the 2 #1 selling things are women and flowers. And I was like, I was just stuck, and I looked at my artwork, and I'm like, oh, I don't paint any women. And a part of me wasn't really that I didn't want to paint women. I didn't want to degrade or paint women in a way to just make money with, you know, big breasts and big. So I really just stayed away from even subjecting or objectifying women in that manner. But I really had to take a look and be like, you know what? I can paint women. I love painting women. I love women. I love flowers. Let me add more of this to my work as opposed to really just putting myself into a box of, you know, just this militant, you know, brotherly love paintings. So I kind of got off the question, but did I answer some of it a little bit?
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, I have one.
Yes.
So I'm like nerding out right now.
Nerd out, I do it all the time.
This is more like a question for, or maybe I'm just asking for advice. It's like, this is a room full of future planners. and I see you like as an artist and as a politician and as a planner. And so I guess like I'm asking for advice. You had this story, and I think it's like on YouTube, about a mural you did. I think it's like Walking Lions or Walking the Lion.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
There's you have this story where it's like it's I think a black woman and she's walking a lion, and there was an encampment that like burned in front of it, and it like burned the mural, and so you had to go like redo it. And a part of that is it's just so real. It's so real to like the Bay Area, and just experiencing space here. So I guess I'm asking for advice, like as future planners, like how do you pull the painter out of the planner? You know, how do we pull the creative out of the planner when we're planning for people? You know, and planning these spaces so that Black people can navigate them, and just different types of people can navigate in these spaces and feel like they belong.
Yeah. I think the solution is pretty much what Karen has done and initiated, is when you're setting up these projects as future planners, and you're envisioning this great world with this great project and the importance of this project, really think about the artists and the corner store owner, not just the policymakers and the people that you need to impress, but really go on the ground. Because we get this question asked all the time, and I'm starting to realize, at first I was like, oh, well, this is our secret sauce. Why do I need to tell people, like, how do we do, people ask us all the time, how do you do community engagement? How do you do the community engagement? How do you do the community engagement? And I'm like, engage the community. Go talk to people. Go buy a drink at that corner store and see what the guy is talking about, and continue to support him and build a rapport and tell him you're working on a project, and maybe can I get a free juice, and hey, I might do, like just build a rapport with people. Even the homeless or the houseless camps. Go take them some food and just ask them, hey, like that wall that we had to redo. It was so, what is the word? Just beautiful, the poetic justice in the fact that I had painted that girl walking the line on the wall. The rest of the wall is mostly green. So I did that piece with all graffiti artists, and I'm the only one out there with a brush. And they're like, man, you're going to take forever. And my thing is, I love to paint with a brush. I can use a spray can, but I love to paint with a brush. So a lot of my spray paint friends, they always give me a hard time, right? But I painted this lion, the girl walking her. Of that whole long wall, the homeless camp, houseless camp, decided to post up right there in front of this lion. And when I would drive by, it was like this dual feeling, like, oh, they're right there. They're going to probably burn that shit down. But also, wow, they feel protected every night, because I don't know if I got the courage to sleep outside in the cold. But maybe that lion gives them some protection, or some feeling of like, hey, you know what, nobody's going to come mess with this area. So it was like, you know what, cool. And then they burned it down, and it was like, we had to repaint it. But it's how do you involve everybody into the conversation, because the graffiti artists ain't going anywhere. The encampments aren't going anywhere. I wish that, not going anywhere. I wish we could find better solutions to it. But yeah, having conversations with all these entities, along with, your advisory committees and boards, it goes a long way. Yes.
Kind of a playful question for you and your team, but if you have a cousin that's visiting you, and they've never been to the Bay Area ever, and you only take them to one of the murals, what mural would you take them to?
Go to 7th West and have a drink and see my mural?
Yes. So Miss Salome did the mural at 7th West on the side, and Ignacia, so on the side of 7th West. Definitely a beautiful mural to check out.
There's another one on the back, so you get 2 for 1.
First one you see is mine.
Any other favorites?
She said that's one.
Eight.
Because there's a lounge area.
There's your
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah.
Like it's perfect.
and you get food and drink.
Andre, could you repeat that for the Zoom audience? What was the second?
No, I think it was just 7th West. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And you could always just take the mural tour because, you know, all the ones downtown, they're kind of close in a mile walking area, so you can get the most bang for your buck. Yes, sir.
So Tracy Williams has a question.
Hey, Tracy.
Hi, Ray. Hi, BAM team. Question. Not sure if anybody has asked already, but will BAM offer any mural painting classes to adults or high school students next year? If so, when?
Yes, good question. So back to one of our original questions. It's all about funding. We definitely want to offer more classes. Right now we're offering the figure drawing classes because it's low overhead. You know, it's just charcoal and paper. With mural classes, we actually got to get walls or substrate of some sort, which is usually, you know, plywood, and we got to move those around because we can't do it in our headquarters space. So we would like to do it next summer, but we're also looking for the funding and just the space to do it as well too. So keep a lookout, Tracy. We'll let you know.
And you can always volunteer with us. We have some volunteer opportunities. You can paint murals. It's not a whole class, but you get some hands-on experience.
Yes, so volunteering is definitely coming up, and we will let people know about the opportunities to volunteer on projects that are coming up in 2023. Yes.
Okay, so I have a few questions, I think, but I'm gonna try to dilute them. So, you mentioned a lot about like creating like spaces where people can get to know like the community members and like in the areas that you choose to like make these like mural projects, and so I'm interested in kind of like hearing your perspective in terms of like placemaking. So like what kind of like relationships do you think that these murals have with the community and creating like spaces for people to like engage with one another or like engage in like the local economies that these, you know, murals are located in? And then another question that I have is how do you go about identifying like the character of the communities that you work in to like better inform like your artwork that you like decide to like illustrate in these areas, while like also maintaining like your artistic integrity to like your vision of like what you see and the kind of like the message that you would like to convey. So yeah, and then.
Ooh, girl, hold on. My give. Hold on, I want to answer all of them, but if we can do it like piece. Oh my goodness, because that one just threw me.
Like, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, okay. So basically, like a lot of the times, like you know, like there's like these urban like renewal, like oriented development and like beautification development projects. Oftentimes can like be received like a multitude of different ways by community members. So how do you kind of navigate that in a ways that like are like serving the community members, but like also ensuring that these aren't things that are necessarily like could be harmful for them in the future? So yeah.
Woo! Yeah, it's, once again, it's just a tough thing to navigate. Even, prime example, I got a lot of slack from friends and even people in the art world for doing the Whole Foods mural, just because they are owned by Amazon. And people were like, you gonna do that mural for Whole Foods and Amazon? And I was like, the same one I just saw you shopping at? I think so. Yeah, it's a, you know, it's a tough, you know, road to navigate, but then also that's why it makes it easier knowing that I work for an organization, because the money that we're fundraising for isn't just for me. It's not like Andre Jones is looking to get paid for Amazon. No, I'm looking for Amazon to fund this nonprofit organization that we're a part of so that we can go out and do other things. So yes, we can paint beautiful flowers and, you know, pretty woman with a blue afro, because that's a little bit softer than, you know, a black afro. But ultimately, yes, the funding we receive goes to not only help pay staff salary and help other artists in the community pay rent. It's a bigger picture, you know, other than, you know, is Dre doing, is he teaming up with Amazon to, you know, go to Mars? You know, so yeah, there's going to be talk on all sides. You're never going to be able to please everyone, especially with city planning. There's going to be people who, you know, love the stoplights at this corner, and there's going to be people who complain that the red light takes too long and the green light's too fast. Like, you're never going to be able to please everyone. So really sticking to your mission, knowing that you're putting, your best energy into problem solving in the best way you know how, usually is the right direction. And, that's kind of like how we stick to it. As far as space making, your initial question, I think, yes, part of our mission is to turn bare and blighted walls into landmarks in the community. So they have become meetup spots. They are already popular. The YMCA is the YMCA. 7th West is already 7th West. But they have become modern day hieroglyphics that people can refer to and be like, oh yeah, meet me here. Or a lot of times, even with our team, we don't say the YMCA. It's like Steph Curry mural. Yeah, Steph Curry mural. So that's where and there's so much else that's there, but it's big, it's bold. If you miss it, then yeah, shame on you. But no. So we just try and make sure that we are taking projects on that will help with creating space, that will help represent the community that the murals are actually being put into. So we're not going to put Steph Curry at Head Over Heels Gymnasium. We're not going to put a bunch of gymnasts. Well, we could put them at the YMCA, but just taking everybody in consideration so that the story fits the scenario and the environment. Yes. Okay, I was just getting warm. I was like, okay, I think I can memorize 3 questions at one time. Yes. You got to talk loud through the mask, though.
Okay. So the first one, it kind of goes back to what you were saying about like drawing women and such, and I'm not sure how to articulate this well, but is it like more so? I'm not sure how the whole mural process works, but is it like when you go to a company and maybe present a mural or something, they don't prefer women who aren't like sexualized or something, or is it like after you paint a mural, they're like, we don't really. Like, you just don't see the same attention with women who aren't sexualized. Like, how does that work? And the second question is, I live by California Hotel. Can I come visit?
Yeah, please. We're there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're usually in meetings all day, but definitely come by, grab some stickers, say hello. Yeah. Okay, yeah, first question. So in my mural experience, I haven't had anybody criticize me about the way I've depicted women, whether it's overly or underly sexualizing them. I think it was more or less in my head. Which time?
Raven Simone's mother.
Raven Simone's mother.
Because she did not accent certain parts of her body that she wanted.
Oh.
To be conservative.
Right. So yes, back to Hollywood. So. Yes, when I did do a mural for Raven Simone inside of her garage, yes, her mom wanted certain body parts more accentuated because the figure that I painted was on the slender side and Raven is more voluptuous. But I wasn't painting really a picture of Raven. I was just painting what I wanted to paint. But then, of course, the client, Raven and her mom. Not so much Raven, but her mom wanted it to be more voluptuous. And that's where I was like, okay, I'll add a little bit more body to it, but I still, it's a push and pull, just with compromising because, like I said, once again, I'm not going to be looking at that painting all day, and I don't want the client walking by and be like, she should be skinnier, she should be bigger, she should be. So I tend to give in a little bit. I'm a people pleaser, so I'll bend a little bit, but I won't totally change the concept and clothing and, But I'll try and I'll wiggle a little bit where I can, though. Did I answer your question?
All right. Thank you so much to everybody here in the classroom. Thank you to the BAM staff for coming out. And thank you to Andre, Elizabeth, Jeff Dodgen, the Arc of Social Justice Corps Fellowship, Department of Digital Planning, Cultural Environmental Design. Just a fantastic way. You've really inspired us with your work, motivated us at just lightning speed with how you started in 2017 and then with the pandemic and raising funds. And I think you have a whole new crew of volunteers, people are going to stop by your office for stickers and more. And we hope to be part of some future workshops ourselves as well for UC Berkeley. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Round of applause.